The Fallout TV show has dropped, and while it features a relatively unexplored place in the Fallout games with brand new characters and storylines, it nonetheless has a bunch of connections to previous entries in the franchise and beyond, some of which have massive implications for the series going forward. So here are the biggest Easter eggs in Fallout. Spoiler warning for the entire season, as well as the Fallout video games. Since the show is set in the same universe as the games, and its events are canon to the series, of course Fallout is chock full to the brim of stuff that is in the game. In fact, the series adheres to the exact same rules as the games do for almost all of its mechanics. For example, in the very first episode, the protagonist Lucy is gravely wounded with a stab to the gut that likely would have killed her without serious medical attention. However, like in the games, you can cure pretty much anything with a self-injected Stimpak. Moments after doing so, Lucy simply walks it off. Now that's Fallout. Of course, the most iconic item from the games is just as instrumental in the show. The Pip-Boy, the wearable computer strapped to every Vault Dweller's wrist. Like Stimpaks, the Pip-Boy has near identical functionality to those in the games. They are a requirement for opening the doors of the vaults, they can be used to detect radiation, they have a GPS system, somehow, and numerous other features. You can even play games on them. The game that Norm plays in the first episode is Atomic Command, which you can play yourself on your own character's Pip-Boy in Fallout 4. The show also expands on the features of the Pip-Boy as well, allowing Vault Dwellers using them to communicate with one another as well as assign tasks. In the show's opening, the children are watching an in-universe show called Grognak the Barbarian. In the games, Grognak is primarily referred to via comics that players can find littering the wasteland, and reading them provides the player with perks. Jury's out on whether they also work like that in the show. Of course, the T-60 power armor is as integral to the show as it is to the games. This is also recreated near one-for-one to previous entries in the franchise, both from looks and how the armor works. Like in the games, power armor needs a fusion core to work, and in an Iron Man-like shot, the HUD displayed within the power armor is identical. The armor in the show does pack in two new features: a scope that can lower over the user's visor, allowing them to aim better, and wrist-mounted jet boosters for short bursts of flight. Fallout 4 allowed players to attach a bulky jetpack to their power armor, but these wrist boosters seem to get the job done. Later on in the season, the residents of Vault 33 learn that after the chaos that ensues in their home in the first episode, the computer that maintains their water supply is damaged, leaving them with a limited amount that will only last them a couple of months. This little wrinkle is nearly identical to the inciting incident of the very first Fallout game, which forces that installment's Vault Dweller, a resident of Vault 13, to venture into the wasteland in search of a way to remedy their situation. And speaking of the very first Fallout, at the end of the season, a passcode is input into a terminal, 101097, or October 10th, 1997, which is the release date of the franchise's initial entry. The inciting incident of the show itself is the kidnapping of Lucy's father Hank, putting her on her own quest to leave Vault 33 in search of him. This is nearly identical to the reason the player character in Fallout 3 leaves Vault 101, in search of their own father, voiced by none other than Liam Neeson. In his previous life, the Ghoul was a man named Cooper Howard. Howard is also the last name of Todd Howard, the director of Bethesda Game Studios, the current overlords of the Fallout IP. Todd Howard is also credited as an executive producer on the show. While Cooper could simply be a random coincidence, my money is on it being a reference to Dale Cooper, the iconic protagonist of the legendary TV show Twin Peaks, and played by Kyle MacLachlan, who also stars in Fallout as the overseer of Vault 33. Considering that his own character's last name is a clear reference to his own, McLean, the choice of Cooper for Walter Goggins' character's first name feels like it simply can't just be a coincidence, especially given producer Jonathan Nolan's penchant for mysteries and twists. The guy has to be a massive Twin Peaks fan. In the show, before Cooper Howard's life as a ghoul, he was a movie star, and in a flashback we see that he made a movie called A Man and His Dog. IRL, there was a movie called A Boy and His Dog that released in 1975, based on a novella of the same name from 1969 by Harlan Ellison. A Boy and His Dog is about a boy and his dog, but most importantly, it's about the boy and his dog surviving the post-apocalypse in a dark, comedic setting. Does that sound familiar? Yes, the movie has been referred to by the creators of the original Fallout as an inspiration for the game. Of course, the biggest Easter egg connected to Cooper Howard is that he is the in-universe source of inspiration for the Vault Boy and his iconic thumbs-up pose, as well as his movie character's blue and gold threads being incorporated into the color scheme of the Vault jumpsuit. The character even references the apocryphal tale that Fallout fans love to share as the prior reason as to why the Vault Boy is giving a thumbs up, that you can tell if you're in the danger zone of an atomic bomb's explosion if you hold up your thumb and the mushroom cloud is bigger than it. However, I really cannot stress this enough. If you see an atomic blast, forget about your thumbs and hoof it in the opposite direction. The most pivotal location in the Fallout show, other than Vault 33, and a place teased at the very end of the season, which we'll get to next in the video, is Shady Sands. What at first seems like a rather innocuous stop on Lucy and Maximus's tour of the wasteland to remind them and the viewer that war never changes, becomes an incredibly important locale that ultimately ties nearly every main character's story together. Shady Sands is the very first surface settlement that you encounter in the very first Fallout game, and like in the show, it's a town that has essentially rebuilt itself in the post-apocalypse. We're going to have a longer video that dives into some of the biggest reveals and twists of the show coming soon, as the fact that it was ultimately destroyed is a revelation the show makes with potentially massive consequences for the franchise going forward. Alright, we're about to talk about, like, the very last shot of the Fallout TV show, so if you haven't already left and you're worried about spoilers for the very ending of this show, please pause this video, go finish Fallout, and come back and watch this after. Okay, so the show's most explicit connection to the games happens in its final shot where, wearing power armor, Hank McClean is shown to be arriving in New Vegas, the titular location of developer Obsidian's spin-off game Fallout New Vegas. Not only is this exciting because it teases the future appearance of a Deathclaw in the show, but this moment has massive implications for the franchise as a whole, which we'll also dive into in that aforementioned upcoming video. For the uninitiated, New Vegas is another post-end-of-the-world settlement built upon the bones of, you guessed it, Las Vegas. Earlier in that season finale, we are introduced to the leaders of the various other pre-war corporations vying for control in the franchise's alternate history. One of them is the head of Robco, Robert House. This is the only character in the show that we have already met in the games, albeit in a much different form. In the game Fallout New Vegas, one of the primary antagonists is Mr. House. Much like we see the character of Bud in the flashbacks of the show eventually as a brain hooked up to the body of a robot in the post-apocalypse, at some point in the timeline, Robert House hooks up his own brain to a computer network while his body is connected to a life support system, allowing him to survive and live on for hundreds of years. As the finale of the show suggests, Hank McClean is on his way to New Vegas to link up with the remnants of the Shadow Cabinet that essentially decided that they were going to end the world. While Robert House may still be there, in all but one of Fallout New Vegas' endings, which takes place before the events of the show, he dies. While it's currently unclear which New Vegas ending is considered canon to the series, whether House is still alive in the show or not doesn't mean that the other corporate leaders, such as Cooper Howard's wife Barb, can't still be alive and kicking there as well. The Shadow Cabinet also reveals something that is new to anyone that has only watched the show, but is something anyone that has played the games is already well aware of, that the vaults were actually designed to experiment on people in various ways. One of the corporate leaders mentions a vault that is overcrowded, which results in Vault 27. Another proposes that one of the vaults house test subjects to become experimented upon and turned into super mutants. This becomes Vault 87, which players can explore in Fallout 3. Vault 106 is the one where psychedelic drugs are pumped into the ventilation system, which is also explorable in Fallout 3, and the corporate head that talks about a vault where children are separated from their parents is likely referring to the eventual Vault 75, which players can find in Fallout 4. To learn more about these and other dastardly vaults, we have another video available already going over all of these, as well as other wicked experiments Vault-Tec and Co. cooked up. And those are all of the most important, biggest Easter eggs of the Fallout TV show. However, pretty much every frame of this show has an Easter egg in it, so let us know in the comments below what your favorite Easter egg was, and stay tuned for more Fallout coverage, especially as we dive into what the ending of the show actually means for the future of the franchise. Stay tuned right here on GameSpot.